You have probably received an email or seen people promote different stocks on Twitter, Instagram, all over social media, saying this stock is going to the moon. It's gonna go 100%. You better jump on now. And if you jumped on it, then you've probably been hurt before in the past. And today we're gonna dive into that whole scheme. It's called the pump and dump. We're gonna explain what it is, how you can recognize it, and how to protect yourself. So what is a pump and dump scheme? Well, typically it's either one individual or a group of individuals pumping a stock for the opportunity for them to sell once everyone buys that stock and let it dump on all the individuals that they convince to buy in the first place. And you guessed it, they're typically pumping companies that aren't really real companies. They're usually small caps, penny stocks, OTCs, stocks that no one is even looking at. And their goal is to go after a stock that has low volume, so that way they can easily create volume by buying up shares and creating a spike that creates volatility. Let's say they promote stock Y. When they promote stock Y, they're gonna say, everybody check out stock Y. This thing is going to the moon. You need to make sure to look at it. Buy it now before you miss out on these 100% gains. It's gonna happen. They're gonna have a huge news announcement or some type of announcement coming soon. Like they have insider information, but they have no proof to back it up. They just say things. And then you go look at the stock, they get people interested in it, but they realize it's not moving, so they may not buy. Some people might, some people won't. But then a few days later, or even that same day later on, a couple of hours or a few minutes, that individual or group of people who are promoting it, they will start buying massive positions and start creating that volatility where that stock with low volume that's easy to manipulate, typically a low float stock, they will start to make it spike and then promote it again. And they'll say, see, we told you it's starting to spike already. It spiked 10%, 30%. Don't miss out. This thing can go even higher than this. It's already blasting through our predictions in terms of time frame. This thing can go much higher and go past the moon. And what happens next? All of the individuals who are unaware of this scheme start buying more because they don't want to miss out. So now they're buying a stock that's up 30% and they are starting to create the volume themselves. And now the initial pumpers can sit back and watch it just keep moving up. And all they have to do is keep promoting it, sending emails, text messages, phone calls, letters, promoting all over social media to get the hype going. And what happens next? It does rise. Sometimes it can rise 1,000%. I've seen this happen. Sometimes it can rise 100, 200, or maybe even 50%. But eventually it hits a number that makes the initial pumpers happy to sell all of their stock. And what happens next is the stock just plummets. And everyone who bought is gonna be down 100%. 30%, 70%. You're gonna lose, if not all of your contributions to that company. This is what we want to avoid. You don't want to be caught in this. Have I been caught in it? Absolutely. I myself, when I first started, I had no idea what that was. And I bought and I got dumped on. But all of the initial pumpers are smiling, walking to the bank, cashing their checks. And then what happens next? They stop talking about that, but they start talking about stock Z and they do it again. And then they talk about stock A and do it again. And you'll see famous people like the guy on Twitter who calls himself Zach Morris, who actually got caught and he's going through trials right now, and him and all his buddies who are promoting stocks over and over and over, saying they're going to the moon and making tons of money with this pump and dump scheme, are now facing charges. So now that you know what a pump and dump scheme is, let's talk about how you can identify it so that way you can be aware. First, remember what I said earlier. These pumpers want to find a stock that isn't moving, that's easy to manipulate, so it's typically a low float. It's a stock no one knows about. You will not hear people pumping Tesla, really, right? Or Microsoft. You can't control that stock, but you can control a stock no one knows that's on the OTC market, or some people who call pink sheets, or as well as penny stocks. And they typically have a very, very small float. We're talking easily, sometimes can have under 1 million shares in the float. And if you're not sure what a float means, let me give you a quick explanation. What it means is that's the amount of shares available to cycle through in the day. So if there's only 1 million shares to cycle through and it's a sub penny stock, meaning it's 0.001 cents a share, anyone can buy 1 million shares and make that thing move. So keep that in mind. So the first thing, low float, a stock no one knows about or even has heard about. The second is they create an elaborate story of a news announcement coming that they know about, but apparently no one else knows. Or a technology that they discovered that they're about to talk about. Or they hit oil and no one knows about this yet, and they're gonna share it later in the future. Something that no one's talking about, they have no evidence, they don't share articles, they don't share anything that shows that this is valid. Then they want to promote it and share it everywhere, all over social media. Sometimes they have groups of individuals all sharing it, right? Or just one individual with a massive following just sharing and yelling, saying it's going to the moon, and they claim massive gains, and you can get in on it right now because I'm helping you out and giving you the secret insight. So then what you want to find out is the stock have any volume? If you go look at it and it has no volume for months, for years sometimes, and then all of a sudden today or the next day or a few hours, because it's up to them how they want to plan it out, it gets a massive pop in volume and volatility, you have to put a huge question mark on that, because it's a low float stock, so many people or one person can really easily manipulate it. And pay attention right after the stock spikes or has that initial move or surge in volume, because what typically happens is you'll see a promotion right after that. See, we told you that it's gonna move. We told you it's going to the moon. You better hop on it now. That is them trying to get into everyone's head and manipulate all the individuals who are not aware of this scheme. And everyone who goes look at it again, remember, they're gonna see it moving, so they're gonna buy. But not you, because you understand what you're looking for. Again, you always wanna make sure, where are these claims coming from? Is there evidence? Is this a low volume stock that typically doesn't even trade? No one ever has interest, and all of a sudden everyone's interested? Make sure to understand these red flags, evaluate them before you put your money behind them. And if you choose to put your money behind them, well, we're going to talk about how to protect yourself, because there are some people who recognize these things happening and know the cycle of a pump and dump and know that maybe, even though that they know it's a crap company, they might be able to take advantage of these pumpers manipulating it and jump on board. But it's very, very, very risky. If anything, I personally would say you might want to avoid these things because they're super risky and they're so volatile. You really can't control your risk, and you can't really control anything about it. The only people who have control are the manipulators themselves, the pumpers. So now you know what a pump and dump is, you know what to look out for to recognize one. So how do you protect yourself? Well, there are many routes you can take. Number one, what we talked about earlier, is you want to do your research on the company. Look at the long-term picture. Is this just a random event that's all of a sudden happening? That is the first thing you can do to protect yourself and choose whether or not you want to play into this type of play. Number two is look at the fundamental analysis. Is there anything fundamentally changing in this company? Look at the SEC filings. Do they have a ton of debt? Is this a company that's just bleeding money and needs money? Sometimes these companies will hire pumpers to help them promote their company to raise funds and do what we call is an offering. So understand that and make sure to research what an offering is. We can create videos of that in the future, but that can really destroy a stock overnight. And avoid unsolicited tips or advice around a company that you never even asked about. Like, if that happens, you might want to avoid that. And if you're that individual who's like, well, I want to take advantage of this now that I'm aware of it, then you better have a very good risk management plan. And you might want to use, you are going to want to use a stop loss in your plan, because you need to protect yourself. And even if you use a stop loss, let me tell you right now, on a stock that has a low float, that has no volume history, but is manipulated to look like it now has volume, that is just fake volume that they created, when they decide to dump that stock, even if you have a stop loss and you have a plan to protect yourself, these stocks can move so fast that you can still get executed at the bottom. So if you're gonna play with fire, know that there's a high chance. In fact, you are gonna get burned, especially if you try this multiple times. You will get burned. So make sure it's money that you want to burn. That way you don't destroy yourself. Please protect yourself, trade smart, do your research, and don't play with these risky investments. Remember, if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. You'll hear the stories of some people who did jump on board and they were not aware of the pump and dump and they did ride it up 100% and they happened to sell. But then there's a ton of people who did not, because the promoters are still promoting, saying it's up 100%, but now it's going to go up another 100%. So please be aware, for every one success story that's just luck, there's thousands of people who lost all of their money. Be careful, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to go to cobratrading.com, click the live chat feature, reach out, and any one of us are happy to help you.